February 14th, 2024. Not exactly the most romantic night for me. While couples everywhere were celebrating Valentine's Day with overpriced dinners and forced smiles, I was lost in the labyrinthine alleyways of Hollow Street. It wasn't a place for love songs and roses, not by a long shot. Hollow Street was a scar on the otherwise vibrant city of Acaster. It was a stretch of road barely a mile long, sandwiched between towering, neglected buildings with peeling paint and broken windows. Graffiti marred the walls, depicting monstrous figures and cryptic symbols. The streetlights here flickered erratically, casting long, distorted shadows that danced with every gust of the icy wind. The air hung heavy, not just with the smell of garbage and decay, but with an oppressive silence that felt like a living entity. No laughter, no music, just the chilling echoes of your own footsteps. I wasn't here for a thrill. I was here because I had to be. My best friend, Sarah, had vanished without a trace 3 days ago. The last anyone saw her was walking down Hollow Street, a place she usually avoided like the plague. The police, predictably, brushed it off as a runaway case, a rebellious teenager seeking independence. But I knew Sarah. She wasn't the type to run away, especially not into the heart of a place like Hollow Street. There had to be more to it. So, armed with nothing but a flashlight and a deep, gnawing fear, I ventured into the darkness. The silence was the first thing that got to me. It wasn't the absence of sound, but the feeling of active suppression. It was as if the very streets were holding their breath, waiting for something. Every creak of an old sign, every rustle of a plastic bag caught in the wind sent shivers down my spine. As I walked deeper, the buildings seemed to close in on me. The flickering streetlights cast grotesque shapes on the walls, forming monstrous figures that seemed to lurk in the shadows. My imagination, fueled by fear, started playing tricks on me. I saw faces in the broken windows, heard whispers in the wind. Was it just the wind, or was someone calling my name? Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the alleyway, making me jump. I whirled around, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The source of the noise was a dumpster, its lid slamming shut with the force of a sudden gust of wind. I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to calm down. It was just the wind, nothing more. As I continued down the street, the air grew colder, and the stench intensified. Here, the graffiti was different. Gone were the monstrous figures. Instead, the messages were cryptic, almost ritualistic. Symbols and phrases I didn't understand were scrawled across the walls, some fresh and vibrant, others faded with time. Then, I saw it. A figure huddled in a doorway at the end of the street. Relief fluted through me, momentarily washing away the fear. It had to be Sarah, alone and scared. I quickened my pace, calling out her name. "Sarah, Sarah, it's me, Alex." The figure didn't move. As I drew closer, my flashlight beam fell upon it. It was a woman, her back hunched, face hidden by long matted hair. My heart sank. It wasn't Sarah. "Excuse me?" I said cautiously. "Have you seen a young girl with red hair? She was wearing—" The woman didn't respond. I took another step forward, peering closer. The woman's ragged clothes hung loosely off her emaciated frame. But it wasn't her appearance that chilled me. It was the unnatural stillness of her body. Even with my limited view, I could tell she wasn't breathing. Fear coiled in my gut. This wasn't right. I slowly reached out a hand, intending to gently nudge her shoulder. That's when the woman's head snapped up. My breath hitched in my throat. Her face was skeletal, a gaunt canvas stretched tight over her bones. Her eyes, however, were what truly horrified me. They were completely black, like bottomless pits that absorbed all light. But the most terrifying thing was the smile. It was stretched unnaturally wide, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth that gleamed in the darkness. Her voice, when she spoke, was a raspy whisper that sent chills down my spine. "Lost, are we?" she rasped, her voice like dry leaves being blown across pavement. I was rooted to the spot, unable to tear my gaze from her horrifying smile. My mind went blank, paralyzed by fear. The woman's black eyes bored into mine, and despite the intense cold, I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my temple. Instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like lead. "Lost," she repeated, the word echoing in the oppressive silence of the street. "Just like her?" Her words sparked a flicker of defiance in my frozen core. "Her? Who are you talking about? Have you seen Sarah?" The smile widened, revealing even more of those bone-chilling teeth. "Sarah," she echoed, the name a hiss on her raspy breath. Another lost soul lured by the whispers. The mention of whispers sent a new wave of fear through me. The wind seemed to pick up, swirling around us with a soft, sibilant sound. It wasn't just the wind, though. There were voices carried on the breeze, faint and indistinct, but unmistakably human. Whispers. Suddenly, the alleyway behind me erupted in a cacophony of noise. Scrambling sounds and panicked shouts filled the air. My heart pounded in my chest, and I whirled around, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. A group of figures stumbled out of the alley, faces contorted in terror. 2 men clad in disheveled suits, and a young woman with wild hair streaking down her face. They ran past me, their eyes wide and vacant, their shouts morphing into incoherent screams. For a moment, I stood frozen, watching them disappear into the labyrinth of Hollow Street. Then, I turned back to the woman. But she was gone. Panic clawed at my throat. I was alone again, surrounded by the oppressive silence and the chilling whispers in the wind. My flashlight sputtered, the beam weakening as the battery started to die. With a surge of adrenaline, I decided to follow the figures. There was safety in numbers, even if these numbers were terrifying. I sprinted down the street, the faint glow of my flashlight barely cutting through the darkness. The whispers seemed louder now, swirling around me like disembodied voices. They spoke in tongues I didn't understand, yet there was a chilling familiarity to them, a sense that they were calling to me. I rounded a corner and found myself in a small, dilapidated square. In the center, a twisted metal lamppost stood, casting an eerie orange glow. Around it, huddled the 3 figures I had seen earlier. Their vacant eyes met mine, and the same chilling smile stretched across their faces. They mirrored the woman's smile, a grotesque parody of human expression. "Welcome," the woman's voice hissed, seemingly coming from everywhere at once. "Join the chorus." The wind howled, carrying the whispers to a crescendo. The faces around me began to chant, their voices blending with the wind into a horrifying symphony of despair. Panic seized me. I had to get out of here. I stumbled back, my foot catching on a loose brick. I fell, landing hard on the cold pavement. My flashlight clattered beside me, the dying beam casting long, distorted shadows. Fear choked me. I was trapped, surrounded by these hollow shells of people, their voices merging with the whispers in a maddening cacophony. The woman appeared before me, her skeletal form looming impossibly large. Her black eyes gleamed with a malevolent light. "You can't escape the whispers," she rasped. "They will claim you too, just like Sarah." A strangled cry escaped my lips. Sarah. What had happened to her? Was she one of these things? Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A small, crumpled object lay in the darkness near the base of the lamppost. It was Sarah's phone. A spark of hope ignited within me. Maybe there were answers on her phone. Maybe there was a way to break the spell, to escape the clutches of the whispers. I scrambled towards the phone, ignoring the woman's chilling laughter. As I reached for it, a hand clamped down on my wrist. It was cold and skeletal, like a claw. "Let it go," the woman hissed, her voice filled with venom. "There is no escape." "No!" I screamed, adrenaline surging through me. With all my remaining strength, I yanked my arm free. Ignoring the burning pain in my wrist, I grabbed the phone and scrambled to my feet. The chanting of the hollow figures intensified. The woman lunged at me, her skeletal fingers scraping against my coat. I dodged her and sprinted across the square, the chanting echoing behind me. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to get away. Hollow Street seemed to stretch on forever, the buildings closing in like menacing giants. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I couldn't stop. Every rustle of trash in the wind sounded like pursuit. Every flicker of shadow seemed like a grasping claw. The whispers, once chilling, now morphed into a maddening cacophony. Sarah's voice, faint and desperate, seemed to rise above the rest, pleading for help. Then, a glimmer of hope. A narrow alleyway, barely a crack in the wall of buildings, appeared ahead. It was dark, even darker than the rest of the street, but it offered a chance of escape. I dove into the alley, the sounds of the chanting fading slightly behind me. It was tight, barely wide enough for me to squeeze it through. The stench of decay intensified, mixing with the metallic tang of fear. I pushed it forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. The alley twisted and turned, a labyrinth in itself. My phone screen, the last light source, flickered ominously. Suddenly, a dead end. The alley slammed shut before me, blocked by a pile of bricks and debris. Despair threatened to engulf me. Was this it? Was this how it ended? But then, as I slumped against the wall, defeated, a faint inscription caught my eye. It was carved into a cracked brick near my feet. The inscription was faded, barely visible but recognizable. It was a symbol. The same symbol I'd seen repeated on the walls of Hollow Street. Panic gave way to a sliver of hope. Perhaps this symbol held the key. Maybe Sarah had used it somehow. I fumbled with my phone, frantically searching for the flashlight app. A weak beam flickered on, illuminating the inscription further. Below the symbol were faint scratches, barely discernible. With painstaking effort, I traced them with my finger, piecing together the message. It was a single word: sacrifice. A horrifying realization dawned on me. The whispers, the chanting, the smiles, these weren't just tools of terror. They were an offering, a sacrifice to some unseen entity. The hollow figures were husks, their souls consumed by the whispers, their humanity replaced by a chilling emptiness. And Sarah, was she already lost? Another victim of the sacrifice? Tears welled up in my eyes, but I quickly blinked them back. I had to think. Sacrifice. What could I offer that would appease this entity and allow me to escape? My eyes darted around the cluttered alley, landing on my phone. It was my lifeline, my connection to the outside world. Maybe, just maybe, that was enough. With a trembling hand, I held the phone up, facing the inscription. "Take this," I whispered, my voice barely above a choked sob. "Take it all, just let me go and leave Sarah alone." Silence. The whispers in my head ceased. The air hung heavy, the tension thick. Then, with a soft sigh, the flickering light on my phone extinguished. The screen went dark. Panic surged through me, but there was no light to illuminate the terror on my face. Then, a sound. A soft, scratching noise coming from behind the pile of debris. The bricks shifted slightly, then crumbled with a crash. A gap appeared, just large enough for me to squeeze through. With a deep breath, I crawled through the opening, leaving behind the darkness of the alley. I emerged into a narrow street, unfamiliar and deserted. Relief washed over me in waves, so intense it made me dizzy. The whispers were gone, replaced by a blessed silence. I looked around, trying to get my bearings. I had no idea how I had ended up here, or where Sarah might be. But for now, I was alive. As the first rays of dawn painted the horizon with streaks of orange and pink, I stumbled away from Hollow Street, its chilling secrets buried deep within. I didn't know if Sarah was still alive, or if the sacrifice had worked. But one thing was certain. I would never set foot in that cursed stretch of road again. The faint, unsettling feeling remained, a constant reminder of the whispers and the chilling horror that lurked within Hollow Street. The story of Sarah and my escape became a whispered legend among those who dared to speak of the place. A legend that served as a chilling warning. Some streets are best left untrodden, some whispers best left unheard.